Hi everyone, welcome to An Hour with LawSikho. This is Ramanuj Mukherjee from lawsikho.com and iPleaders. And today I have my college friend. Actually, we have been friends before even we went to college. We are preparing for law entrance examinations together in Calcutta. I have with me a person who is actually went through the law school experience. After that, went to one of India's top law firms, Amarchand Mangaldas, and then he decided it is not his cup of tea, and he left and he started preparing for civil services and cracked the civil services. And today he's an IRS officer. He started with me at NUJS, and he's even like somebody who was really passionate about working in a law firm while he was in law school. But after he joined the a law firm, he very quickly left. Actually, I don't remember how soon you left, but I remember it is pretty soon. Hi, Abhishek.
Hi Ramanuj, how are you?
Yes. So Abhishek Tripathy is now an assistant commissioner of income tax, and he cracked UPSC with a very good rank. And if a lawyer has to crack the UPSC, he's one of the best person to tell us how to do it, how to go about it. And I'm going to ask him a lot of questions today about his journey and his experience. So Abhishek, when you first uh, joined law, I remember even before you joined, NUJS, before you even wrote the entrance exam for NUJS or any other law school for that matter, you were very clear that you are going to work at Amarchand Mangaldas. And you were one person, I remember clearly, you were so clear before which law, you knew exactly which law firm you are going to work for, and after 5 years you were working exactly in that law firm. I remember you had told me that you had a teacher whose son was working there, right? And seeing him, you wanted to work in that particular firm and decided to become a lawyer.
Yes,
So if you can tell that story, there are not too many people who actually know what they're going to do next year, and you knew it, what you're going to do several years down the line.
fine.
Even I had said things I would want to do. I had said when I joined law school, I said, I want to become a diplomat. But I never, after a few years in law school, that I lost interest in that. I never said again that I want to be a diplomat. But you actually sustained that interest. What you said you will be doing from the beginning, you actually did that. So tell us a little about your journey towards the beginning of your
The way you summarize it, Ramanuj, is just very interesting. I mean, it take me down the memory trip. Yes, I met one of my school seniors in this bookstore, and his parents happened to be my old teachers and very close family friends. So they told me, like, hey, why don't you consider law as your career option? If you get to colleges like NUJS and NLS, the other law schools had not come up then. So you get to work in places like Amarchand Mangaldas. For me, I was like, oh wow, what is that? Very interesting name. So for me, that was my brief. That was the mandate that I carried in heart when I went to the coaching that we both went to together in Calcutta. And yes, I somehow that was my naivete or my juvenile fascination that I need to get into the top three, and I need to get into the big three. So it just worked out. I'm very happy that it worked out. I'm actually even happier that it worked out the way it did, because once I was living my dream, so to say, uh, and it didn't pan out quite as per what I had expected it to be. It made it that much easier. So it wasn't about moving from one place, one law firm to another, or one legal job opportunity to another. It made me so introspective that I had I had to rethink my priorities in life. So that way it was very good, in retrospect, that the way it happened. If Amarchand had probably not happened, and I had done something else, given how obsessed I was with a law firm job and that too at a very good law firm in India, I would have probably always nursed this grudge that probably if I had been at the best place, things would have been slightly different. So thankfully I don't have that regret, that grudge I do not have.
right. But if you can tell us a bit, like, what was your expectation when you were thinking that I'm going to work at Amarchand Mangaldas only and you have been throughout law school? What were you expecting, and in what ways did your expectation not get met?
If you recall, Ramanuj, the National Law School model, I mean, the way it was when we joined, it was like go, moot, do really well as a mooter, and somewhere wait for your day zero placements, and where you have all these law firms where seniors who look very glamorous and straight out of Sidney Sheldon books or the movies came and took interviews. Somewhere that had a very lasting impression on me, because I was like the only one in my family at that time in a national law school, and these images were very starry. I mean, I wanted to pursue that also because of the theatrics, the optics of it, and also because I genuinely believe that I would do well to work in a law firm, given the variety of work that would come there, the kind of deals that they work on would be like really cutting edge and a great exposure for a first generation lawyer like me, for who starting out into litigation would be slightly some sort of a challenge, a slightly bigger challenge. So I thought law firm was comfortable, safe, and where I could earn well and do well, both. So yeah, that is why my fascination with the law firms.
Okay. And like you were expecting what sort of environment? Did you think about it like once you join the law firm, how will it be?
I never thought about it. I thought, life, I really never thought about it, how it's going to be. It's only later, from my third year onwards, that I started interning with the law firms, that I kind of saw the lifestyle that was there. In fact, the seniors who would go and intern would come back and tell the long hours and the kind of, the lifestyle, the working there long hours, then still socializing. I mean, and that whole, package of working in a law firm, late nights, early mornings, a lot of travels, due diligence, deadlines, other deadlines. So I kept hearing, but till you work and you are staffed on something like that, and you have faced it, you will never really kind of have that, what do you call it, judgment. That sense of judgment would be grossly lacking. So yeah, I got to know about how exactly is a law firm life once I started working in Amarchand Mangaldas. And I also saw all of you, like you were at Trilegal, and a lot of our other friends at the biggest of law firms in India and abroad. So we kept hearing. So that sense of that vision, that bandwidth, that came in, that perspective came in.
Right. So if you can tell, like, what was, like, in what ways, let's be honest, in what ways were you disappointed and why did you want to leave?
See, I was more, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but I think it just did not align with my set of priorities. Very frankly, I have always wanted to do something for my, like, go back home and, set up a practice, or be a lawyer in Odisha, which is where I belong to. So I realized that if I was going to continue working in a law firm, especially in Bombay, I was, limiting my chances or prospects of going back and doing something similar, because the kind of work that Bombay law firms do is very, I mean, it's different even from, say, a Delhi legal market or a Bangalore or a Calcutta legal market. So if you're talking about a tier two, tier three city, where like, what kind of transactions are we really talking about? It's next to negligent. So first and foremost, my the reality check was I was ultra specializing, and I was foreclosing all my options to go back home. So my primary thinking was that. Secondly, what I sort of also realized, that I the kind of there were certain kind of lifestyle changes that were inevitable. Like my father used to keep calling, and he would be calling me at 7 in the evening. I'd be in office. At 10 in the night, I'd be in office. Like 2 in the night, he'd be like, just giving me a missed call, or just a message, and are you even back home? So I realized that that was a usual. I mean, not that I complained about the long hours, but it was going to be a continuum. It might be not 2 a.m. every day, but it will still be in that zone. I did not want that. I really wanted uh, work-life balance. I mean, that is something I was really looking forward to, and I did not think that continuing in a law firm wherever, it was not a question of geography anymore. It wasn't the coefficient of place anymore. So I realized, if I needed a work-life balance situation, one that is tangible, I really needed to look beyond the law firm life. So those were two of my primary issues that I had with law firm. I did not have any significant issues with people, or in transactions, or tragedies in law firm per se, but these were long term things, and I had to take a very practical decision based on those.
Right. That's very interesting. Like, how long were you there in Amachal?
I was short of a year by like 10 days or something, 11 months, 20 days, or around that time. Yeah.
So even around that is what time I also quit. Now,
Yeah.
I just want to know from you, like, when you decided to quit, did you have a clear plan on mind? Like for me, I
Uh-huh.
had a clear plan. I was going to work on IP readers, which I'm even doing today.
Yeah, yeah.
But
We
why?
do. Yeah. Sorry.
So no, when I joined the law firm, I knew that I'm going to pursue IP readers eventually very soon. It was a short while that I'm going to work. But for you, how was it? Like did you when you quit? What were you thinking? That what are you going to do? Did you leave with a plan, or did you make a plan on the fly? How did it work?
I think the latter. I made a plan on the fly because I never left Amarchand because I wanted to write the UPSC exam. That wasn't the plan because I wasn't sure if the UPSC exam would address my needs. I left the law firm thinking that the more I continue and the more comfortable, the more I get used to the comfortable money at the end of the month and all of that, it would be more difficult for me to withdraw and come out of it. So I left it knowing well that it could have backfired and it could have been really bad in that case because my options were what were doing an LLM, doing an LLM from India, doing an LLM from abroad. Abroad application deadlines would only mean next year. So I think I was thinking primarily about doing an LLM from India and like probably going back to NUJS and pursuing PhD MPhil. That was one of the options, but I was not sure if the academia would give me the sort of kick that I was really looking at, expecting rather from my job. So I thought of NGOs also at that point, and I thought of like firms like places in and around Bhubaneswar, which is like Calcutta predominantly. So I did think about Amarchand Calcutta itself and other firms which are good in Calcutta. So all of these things were going on at the back of my mind till my parents sat me down and they just told me like all of that can happen, but if you cross the age limit, you would never be able to give this exam. And if you have left your job, there are no considerations of going back into an LLM right away. You might as well give 1 year, 2 years at least, and just see if you want to continue in this line because getting through UPSC, that too with no prior interest or inclination, it's going to be difficult. We all realize that. So it was after like 2 3 months that I sat at home, cooled down and made peace with myself that okay, let me give UPSC exam a serious shot. Because I was very clear that if I was going to write the UPSC exam, then it was a full-time job in itself, which did not pay. So I did not want to do 100 different things or write many different exams like banks and CAT and stuff. If it was about UPSC, then it was just about the UPSC.
Okay. So once you decided that you are going to pursue this exam, like you're going to write the UPSC exam, so how long did it take you from the time you actually started working on it and actually cracking it? How long was it?
I cracked the UPSC in my second attempt with a rank of 151. So it is like almost 2.5 years. It's a long cycle exam. So I started preparing around say October, November of 2012, and 2015 July we had the exam results. So that is how long it took for me. The first year was very difficult actually. I was at Bhubaneswar. I was completely based from home. I bought all the books because I like the other thing would be like like if we can talk about also going to Delhi and preparing, which I'm not sure you might ask me in the course of the conversation. But I was very clear that before I head out of home, I should know what I'm going to what I should expect of the place I'm going to. So did not want to go land in Delhi and let the coaching institutes lead me into preparing whatever random things they wanted. I just sat down at home, got all the NCRT books, and started reading newspapers. And that is how my first chance went. I did not qualify the prelims in the first chance because I had grossly underestimated the expectations of this exam, and because I was not taking any coaching. I was just self-reading. But immediately after that, I moved to Delhi for 3 months, and that set the course. It was a course correction for me, and that is how I took it. That is where it took off from really. Second attempt.
Right. So in the first attempt, basically you were self-reading and self-taught completely, trying to
Yeah.
crack it on your own, right, without
Yes.
any further
Yes.
coaching. So
Yes.
what was the difference when the second time you went ahead and started getting coaching? So you got coaching for the whole year or only for 3 months?
No, no, only for 3 months in Delhi. Basically, what I did was I was probably I was a little ambitious also because I realized that my only lacuna was the CSAT paper, which was a determining paper, and tragically, I had not done any test papers in the first attempt. So my first experience of a question paper was right away in the exam hall, which was like my speed was very low. So because we had done the law entrance coaching and all, coaching and the exam writing. So I was somewhere very complacent that that is exactly the kind of questions that will come, which they did come, but my speed was completely lost. So I realized if I fine tune my CSAT preparation, probably I have a good shot at the exam, because GS wasn't the problem. Like I am from a CBSE background and I've done those concepts well. I mean, I was comfortable, and the time that I went to Delhi, I did not enroll for a prelims coaching. I actually enrolled for a mains advanced course. So, which was essentially a thorough revision and advanced course for the mains exam candidates. So, I was a complete misfit because here I had not qualified the prelims also, and I was doing an advanced mains course. But I knew that I was on the, like somewhere I trusted my instincts. I needed CSAT, help there. So I got a lot of test papers. I joined Sriram sir's CSAT classes in Delhi, and I started attending the classes because I thought answer writing is something I really would not have any idea about, which would be UPSC centric. I mean, not just write theoretical answers, but exam centric answers. So 3 months in Delhi, and I was again back home. Three and a half months, and I was back home.
Okay. All right. So, what would what would you say were the biggest mistakes you made in the course of preparing for this, like in your opinion?
Complacency in writing. Actually, I thought I was since I used to write alongside some newspapers, some websites for my own stuff, own legal research, as I was doing pro bono for an NGO also. So I thought I could do without writing the essay paper, which cost me very dearly in my answers, in my scoring pattern. So I could have done that. I should have really written a lot of essay, practiced a lot more essay papers, and I could have done better preparation in terms of some of the law papers. Actually, like I blanked out in my international law paper one of law. I could have probably done it a little more thoroughly, but since it was my second attempt, and in that attempt I was trying desperately to complete the entire syllabus, which I can say that I completed the whole syllabus. Each of those UPSC syllabus entries, I did that. But it came at a cost, because my knowledge was extensive, but it was not too deep. So that I think could have been better about the law paper. Though I scored pretty okay. I mean, I scored around 260 to 265 or 268, something like that, which was okay by that year's, by 2015 scoring standards.
Okay. So basically, one thing was that like the depth of the knowledge could have been more, and if you had
Yes.
more time, probably you would have done that. So would you
Yeah.
say that the syllabus of UPSC is such that it's very difficult to complete in 1 year to learn all of it and actually
Uh,
percent with all of it?
Not very difficult to complete if you have a kind of if you have a vision to go about it. Like for in my case, since I was not taking coaching and I was like doing it on my own, reading websites, talking to seniors who had cleared, I would frequently email Ashutosh Salil sir, who's from NLSIU, and he cleared before. I used to call up and talk to Rupavardhini Raju from from NUJS, and she had cleared a couple of years before, and Aparajita Rai. So like all of them would tell me their own experiences, and there were juniors and there were batchmates who were writing the exam, so we would constantly discuss. So it was like, and more so because in law you never had a coaching institute anywhere in Delhi, thankfully also, who could give you ready-made notes or feedback. So you had to be on your own, and luckily that way I could revisit a lot of these concepts with confidence that what I'm doing is what the arm public is also doing, because there is no coaching institute for UPSC. So yeah, that way I had to do that hard labor alone. But if somebody is very clear, like in the third year, fourth year onwards in college, you do those basics, which I did after leaving my law firm job. Then the year that you are giving it a very serious shot, you would have already covered a lot of syllabus. So it's only about revising and writing it well, as opposed to my second attempt, where I had not even proceeded to revise some parts. I was just about completing, and I went to write the mains paper.
All right. So in your opinion, how, like, if you had a chance to go back, 3 years, 4 years before your UPSC exam when you cracked it,
Yeah.
what would you do? Like, what would you do differently? How would you prepare? Like, let's say you are back in your fourth year of law school and you have ample time in front of you. How are you going to prepare for UPSC?
Uh, like before I say that, I would say that I would still want to sit for my day zero and get that law firm job.
Sure.
So, having said that, if I would still have the UPSC at the back of my mind, I would probably complete all the NCRT books, like take a print of the UPSC syllabus, sit with it, buy all the NCRT books. I mean, be self-sufficient in the knowledge sources. Like, collect all the photocopied materials from like shops around in Delhi. Probably make a trip during one of my internships, buy those. Start reading newspaper diligently, and then read a lot of these blogs. Probably if it is now, then probably look at one of these interviews that you are conducting, or say some other websites and online platforms are doing, where we get to know more about how law students can approach the UPSC exam better. Those things were not readily available during that time. So yeah, but I would still sit for my interview, get that job, because that 1 year in the field also helps me with a lot of practical, knowledge about how to conduct myself in the job. And with a brand like Amarchand Mangaldas behind me, it's like how Cyril Shroff sir had told us, like, it's your big ticket. It's like it's a red carpet. So it actually is like that. Even now when there is a crowd, when there are like 150 of us officers, and we are asked to introduce ourselves. When I tell that I have worked in a law firm, people appreciate. And when I tell them that I've worked in a big brand like Amarchand Mangaldas, they look at you with a certain degree of respect, because you're branded. So yeah, I wouldn't rate that away, but I would also start my basic preparation right in law school. Maybe fourth year is a good time.
So if you can tell me, like, when would you start actually, like, what are the big chunks, like, if you say that, say, one, two, three, the biggest chunks of preparation, biggest tasks in the whole preparation cycle, then what are those three big things that one has to do?
The foremost would be reading newspapers every day. I mean, it's like life breath of an UPSC aspirant. Actually, I was addicted to reading newspapers and magazines, so it was not a challenge for me. But I have seen my friends who have actually suffered because they hated reading the newspaper. So for those of us who love to read the newspapers, half the battle is won. But for those of us who don't, it's like 200 times the big challenge getting bigger. So newspaper reading every day is like a sine qua non. I mean, you just have to do it. Second would be, understanding the requirements of the exam. I cannot overemphasize the need for this, because it is very different from the way you would attempt your say law school exam, or any college graduation level exam. It is very, very different. In law school, what we are expected to do is, when we, for like top scoring papers, we are expected to analyze it well, look at the international law position, give a comparative analysis, and do a lot of things like that. But in the UPSC, things are much like simpler, and that is a requirement. Like, if it is a law question, we are probably better placed, by analyzing that with the domestic examples, current affairs, or very headlining international affairs, rather than just talking about, say, what the constitution of the US or the United, or Australian constitution say. Because at the end of the day, the exam expects basic answers that cover the ground really well. They're testing the thoroughness, and not just the wide ranging knowledge that one might be looking at when writing law school papers. So this is very important. And thirdly, doing away with the structured legal language answers. The language has to be very, very simple. Now, I had a very big problem there, because over 5 years, and working also, one is used to a certain way of communicating and writing. And in fact, the way of thinking is such that you exactly write like that. Now, those were like stumbling blocks when I was writing answers during the UPSC, or while I was speaking during my mock interviews. I was told to speak in precise, simple English. I mean, I should not. I mean, I was told you should not sound like a lawyer, or read like a lawyer when you're writing or speaking. That was difficult to understand, and much more difficult to execute also. But if I am like, and especially for those who are in their law school still, it is going to be sort of a difficult balance to strike. But ultimately, complete your law school, and once you've graduated and you're fully into the UPSC mode, these are things you must prepare. No going away from this.
Okay. So just to summarize, what would you say are the three biggest things to do before you, like, for a lawyer, especially?
Newspapers. First is newspapers. Then is the second one is completing your writing in clean and simple English, and revising thoroughly. Basically, these will be the three things.
Okay, so how do you say a lawyer should be preparing for the, Actually, first of you tell me, like, are there some advantages or disadvantages for a lawyer to prepare? Let's say somebody has graduated in zoology or something like that, right? Psychology or education. Do they find it easier to crack, CSAT or overall UPSC? Like, what is the difference when a lawyer is giving that exam? Like, what's the unique thing about a lawyer giving UPSC?
See, I think the biggest advantage lawyers have is the ability to interlink, build bridges between topics. Because what we are trained in economics, political science, and sociology, especially sociology in NUJS, was very well emphasized on. So the way you very easily interlink topics just as you are reading them or you're thinking about it, that is an art, and that is what the UPSC answers also expect. That, for example, if I'm an administrator today, and a problem comes before me, I'm expected to take a holistic view of things and not just address it from my biases, or just long held knowledge base, which might not be very wide. So interlinkage is one for lawyers. Second is the ability to express, the coherence in thought. It's a very big asset, especially during interview. What we think, we express, and probably outdo ourselves. That is very, very. I mean, during all my mock interviews, content it came later, but I was always told that the very fact that as a lawyer you can communicate well demonstrates that you are a good lawyer, and the interview panel expects that whatever background you are representing, you should be able to show them that you've done that education well. Sorry. So those two things, and obviously the grasp over the law. I mean, if there is an answer which is talking about social security for women, security for women, and you're talking about it from the point of view of IPC and a little bit of the Harassment in Workplace Act, or what probably the NGOs and organizations like Isha's organization is doing for women's safety. In fact, I remember I had written about that gender sensitivity course that I think the School of Social Sciences and NUJS had launched during that time in one of my GS papers. And those are very unique perspectives that, probably given that very few lawyers actually write this exam, those will be the defining points in one's answer sheet. So yes, very big advantage for lawyers. You asked me also about inherent advantage for kids from other backgrounds. It used to be, I mean, at least the perceived notion was that somebody from an engineering or a quant based background who had a slightly more advantage writing the quantitative aptitude paper, the CSAT. But now it is a qualifying paper. So even that perceived imbalance is somewhere addressed. And also the fact that all the GS papers, general studies papers, are now compulsory, it is like a level playing field. So once you have same syllabus of constancy and syllabus, it's the way of your expression and your intelligences that really make a lot of difference. So
Okay.
that is the advantage. And to address a disadvantage of a lawyer, again, the language skill. If it is too complicated language or it is too serious a language, the examiner may not understand what you're trying to write. So both ways, it's a double-edged sword for the law students.
No, anyway, I think law schools across India should start training
Yeah.
lawyers to write in the simplest possible
Oh
language,
yes,
not.
couldn't agree more.
So something that you said really caught my attention, and I want to actually say this, mention this. You said that we had really good economics and sociology teachers. I swear, like some days back, I was asked some questions by one student journalist from NUJS were asking me, like, what are the high points of what did you take back from NUJS, like, with looking back. And I started, it was good 12 years back, right? But
Yeah,
one of the classes that had the biggest impact on me, and I say that, this I use this language, that the first year in NUJS taught me to question, like, deeply rooted beliefs and, like,
absolutely.
clearly held ideas about how the world is, how things are. And we were taught to question. And I must, like, I always say that, three best teachers I had: Nandan Non, Ruchira Goswami, and Rukmini Sen. Like, they taught me
Completely.
the most important things in NUJS. I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, in NUJS, I wouldn't have probably agreed to this.
Just on that point, I actually emailed each one of them. I told them when I qualified the exam that, ma'ams and sir, it is all because of you. Even Vikramjit, sir used to tell us time and again, read, Sumit Sarkar, read Bipan Chandra. It never made sense, Ramanuj. I had those books in college, but, those were the first points of reference for preparing UPSC history. So I told sir, sir, little had I paid more attention to you when you kept on saying, my life would be so much more easier now. Anupama
But
Ghoshal ma'am's
actually,
political
we
science.
are going to a law school. You are going to be lawyers in law firms. We didn't care about these subjects. We did. Like they were good teachers. They got our attention also. But beyond that, I really feel that this was the most valuable part of the entire law school education somehow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Completely agree with you, Ramanuj.
Okay, so coming back to UPSC, of course, like what's in your opinion, what was like the things you did right, like you maybe you have done them intuitively or you knew or you consulted people, but you just got those few things right, and those that is what worked for you. If you can suggest what are those things.
Ramanuj, I read the newspaper and I clung onto it like, it was my life. Because I realized though I had to play to my strength. And my strength was how I linked topics. I realized while discussing with others, while discussing with people in Sriram's and, my limited interaction with others, that my biggest strength was the fact that I could read and process a lot of current affairs without any fatigue. I mean, I know my appetite was insatiable. I would tire out doing economics or such other subjects. But when it came to reading the same thing from newspapers, it was a fun way of doing it. Like for example, my entire preparation for foreign affairs has been just from newspapers. I mean, I've never really read a magazine other than the Diplomat or the Economist. For my preparation of key concepts in economics, I like fiscal deficit management, your macroeconomic concepts, because a lot was being spoken about during that time. India's policy paralysis, for example, it all came from newspapers, so it made my life so much easier because I realized just doing concepts will not suffice. Having clarity in concepts is one thing, but obsessing about having books and keeping on reading it from 100 different places is just suicidal. And I realized that when I saw the essay paper, policy paralysis, in fact, was one of the topics. In fact, all the essay topics that I saw were somewhere, in my current affairs notes that I was preparing so diligently. At this point, Ramanuj, if I can take you back to the way we were preparing during law exam entrances, we were told to emphasize precisely. I still remember Mr. Sachin Malan's that booklet from LST that we got. It said, emphasizing on reading newspapers and magazines. I still have that booklet. In fact, that booklet used to be right next to me when I used to do the UPSC preparation. I've told Sachin about this also now. And that is the fundamental idea that I had. If I had to do it well, I had to do it just like I had prepared for my law entrance exam, having the basics right. That was one. And secondly, the other instinctive thing was to write like there was no tomorrow. I used to write and practice so many tests. Like, I had written some 100, 120, 30 test papers in just prelims. And all this is in addition to the ones that I wrote separately for my mains and all. So, yes, I prepared exhaustively. And interview was also something that I realized it was one of my strengths. I love to speak. And I realized the very fact that I love to speak, could also be like my unraveling, because I might end up volunteering an information that is not solicited. So I had to prepare extra hard for the interview. I did that, and I did well to do that, because when I spoke during the interview, it was a freewheeling chat like we're having right now. And it was good that even while having a very casual conversation, they had their own way of getting the basics out of me. So if they were asking about problems in of Maoism in Orissa, they had a way of asking how is Forest Rights Act going to be relevant to your state. So yeah, so I think all these three aspects really helped me.
Okay. So if you look back now,
Yeah.
like how would you compare? I know you are being a civil servant is no easy job, right? It is a pretty difficult thing to do. How does it compare with working as a lawyer? Like, what's your experience?
Uh, it is hard in the sense that there is a little more there is a lot more restraint actually on you. Like you are under constant public scrutiny. You're sitting in the chair, and that one stroke of a pen can mean something to somebody's life. So you're a lot more responsible now. Having said that, I really believe, Ramanuj, that as lawyers we had just enough or even more power in our hands to do public service. Now, that is something that I've realized once I've entered this so-called domain of exclusive public service, that there is nothing exclusive about public service anymore. When you're drafting a commercial agreement and you're getting foreign investment into the country, it is helping employment, right? So how is that not public service? So our construct and our perception of public service should change if it already hasn't. Because for me, I clearly see UPSC as just another job which has a service mindset. That is where I see it being different from what I did as a lawyer. And challenges. Did you also ask me about the challenges I
Yeah,
faced?
sure, sure. Tell us about the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, challenges would be essentially that, Ramanoj, because as a lawyer, I could, easily stand up and take a stand and, get that thing published in the newspaper. And my opinion of that would also, be taken seriously. But I cannot do that as a bureaucrat, I have to be more responsible in terms of, because the moment I speak on a public platform, I'm very conscious, like as we all civil servants, all of us are very conscious that that we have a baggage of the government that we're representing. Nothing we speak or do should embarrass the government. Our personal views are different, but it should not color our public conduct. That I think is a very big responsibility, heavy responsibility of being in the service.
Yeah, sure. Any other challenges you can think of?
Other challenges is Ramanoj. I remember like dealing with the public. Even though the income tax of the IRS itself is slightly more insulated than say the IAS or the IPS, which has direct public interface, but given the increasing role that our service is being expected to play, especially post this entire narrative on black money and demonetization being one of the many aspects under it, our interaction and our interface has increased a lot. Even otherwise, as part of my regular assessment responsibility, I remember there was this time when a very old gentleman called me and just said that I really apologize if calling you is breaking protocol by any way, but my problem is that something very minor has happened with regard to my PAN, which if you could just look into it, then I'll probably get the refund due to me at an earlier date. And the way he was apologizing, I really felt very bad, because the very idea that we are public servants means that we should be accessible on any of the platforms available for them to call us. So I just called my staff and I asked what is the problem, and I figured that it's very very simple. All I had to do was work on the system and give him the credit on his PAN. That was the long and short of it, and it happened. And this 8-year-old person called me and thanked me profusely. I found that a little difficult to take, because this is something we should be doing on a regular basis. It should not be causes of those rare instances of celebration for us. Or for that matter, when a very old gentleman came into my office, he was representing his wife's case, and he started giving me submissions by way of whatever relevant documentation was there. And I tried to take it up on a priority basis, because the lady was bedridden and this man was like, he looked very frail. So the day I passed the assessment order in his case, he started crying, holding my hands. I was very emotional. That is the kind of impact you can have on people. Now imagine if I had continued prolonging his hearings, or if I thought, no, maybe he's just putting up a facade. I shouldn't trust him. Maybe probably yes, that could have led to something. But here I was upfront seeing how my one prompt assessment helped this really needy person in front of me. So I think that this is what some instances that I personally learned from during my field stint. That we should be very prompt and efficient, and if it means, I mean, we should take a stand. That is very important.
That's really wonderful. Are there certain advantages lawyers get when they are a bureaucrat, or even in the IRS specifically? Like, what are the advantages of a lawyer doing this work?
The law advantage of having studied the law is immense. Having said that, the income tax per se is very specialized. So even in law school, some of us realize that we were cut out to do taxation. So they kind of focused all their internships, they focused their energy and orientation on that. And we have really good batchmates, seniors or juniors who are tax practitioners. But once you enter the income tax, it is not just the income tax act that you're looking at. Like right now, there are some of my batchmates which are doing incredible work in the Benami property units that have been set up under the Benami Act, and the kind of work they do is essentially that of a lawyers. I mean, it's very specialized, it's very procedural. In the last charge that I was holding, Ramanuj, I had a lot of court matters. I mean, I was expected to be in front of the High Court, draft pleadings, draft paragraphs responding to the, 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 points of law that were raised. And I was expected to be representing the department alongside the standing counsel. So yes, a lot of people do that without a legal background also. We are expected to do that, but just the fact that you have a law background comes in handy, because you just know, I mean, where is it that you can, really pack a punch in your arguments. You just know how to do that. For example, now I'm currently posted as in the transfer pricing wing of the income tax department, which is part of the international taxation cell. Now, the kind of work that we are expected to do while dealing with companies is highly cutting edge. It's very technical, but at the same time very, it forms part of the core understanding of corporate law also. If you're looking at the Vodafone case, or if you're looking at something like that, you are expected of to have a certain standard, and the very standard that you have to have is very important.
Hello, Abhishek. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? We have lost you. Okay, unfortunately, I think there's an internet problem on the side of Abhishek. We can't hear him or see him. Maybe he'll be back in a few minutes. So I think I'm very satisfied with the kind of direction this discussion has taken so far. We have covered quite a bit of ground. We have spoken about the preparation for UPSC, the experience of giving UPSC as a lawyer, and even the experience of working as a bureaucrat in case of Abhishek in IRS. What is the experience of working as a lawyer? And I do have a few very important questions to ask him till even now, but unfortunately, it seems that we have lost Abhishek. What I would be doing is I'll just give him a call and see if we can have him back. Please, please excuse me for a moment. Okay, Abhishek is back, but we can't hear him yet. He has joined us back. Okay, we have lost him. We have several questions actually from uh, various persons who have been watching this, but so far Okay, the problem persists. It seems that Abhishek has had a power cut, but he's trying to join us back using his phone internet, but so far he has not succeeded. We'll wait for a couple of minutes.
Hi, Ramanoj, can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you and see you. You are welcome back. I think this was problem due to a power cut. Hello, Abhishek.
Hi, Ramanoj, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. Unfortunately, it seems that there is a problem on Abhishek's end, and perhaps it is his internet is not working, and there's a power cut on his side. So we'll have to end today's session abruptly. We definitely promise to bring Abhishek back and have another conversation. Okay, Abhishek is trying to join us again. Let's just see for the last time if it works. Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Abhishek, can you hear me? Can you see me? Hello? Okay, unfortunately, it seems that it is not really working out. So you'd have to abruptly end the session today over here. And I will ask Abhishek to answer the questions that were asked in the comments since he's not able to answer them in person in the video. All those who watched, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Good night and goodbye.